Hail, hail, the Celtics are here, and what the hell do we care now? It's the international break, and it's time to put our feet up and chill out and actually enjoy some of the football with just enjoying it for the sake of, Scotland. We don't need to worry about Celtic and all the drama and everything else that goes around it. It's a wee bit of, guilt. It's guilt-free kind of enjoyment for football, I think. So, we're here today on the Celtics are here for the Sorare CSC as ever. I'm Quinny, and this week again we're joined as ever by Mark Patrick Rare. Mark, good to see you, mate. Long time.
Good to see you guys. Good to be here. Good to be following a positive Celtic, positive-ish Celtic.
Yeah, for sure. Hail, hail. And Sean, good to see you back as well, mate. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail, Quinny. Good to see you. Always nice to speak to you from your lair of televisions.
From my stronghold of digital goods, for sure.
Yeah.
And, we're in this international break, guys. I named the stream, I can't remember, the season so far and kind of what next, because quite a lot on this stream, especially when we're previewing the squad, trying to think about, how well could we do this season and who will the standout players be? We had a lot of preconceived notions. We had a lot of speculation and a lot of forecasts on maybe the highs and the lows that we might have this season, who might be some of the main culprits. Some of them have, outperformed their expectations for the better and some for the worse. We'll maybe talk about both sides of that today. But I think at the moment, certainly, there's a lot of noise around, the season as a whole. We're hearing more of the noise coming from the blue side of Glasgow, just with problems and dramas and all the rest of it. But I think since, I've not had both these on for a little while, certainly, at this kind of checkpoint of the season, let's say we'll start with you, Sean. What would you say is your overriding kind of sentiment or feeling about like Brendan and the squad right now?
I think the last game against Kilmarnock, even though there was a goal conceded in that, from a Sorare perspective, actually was pretty positive because you've seen a lot more final third passes, and in Sorare, we want them from defenders because it's like a insane points boost you get. So that was pretty positive. I suppose it's nice to see guys like Liam Scales, who, given an opportunity, actually, domestically looks good and solid, and we should put more faith in those kind of squad players more often, to be honest, because he's stepped up. I think the squad looks good. It was nice to see Hatate in that little conversation that Rodgers said he had with him to kind of up his intensity off the ball. Clearly that happened against Kilmarnock. And yeah, actually, from a domestic point of view, Celtic are fine. They're going to probably win that league quite comfortably. But I think there's maybe a missed opportunity a couple of weeks back with the Livingston game where we got to see Maeda and Kyogo as that front two down to 10 men. And we got to see how devastating that kind of narrow setup can be with those two. I would like to see that in Europe. I think that gives teams untold problems. I think still we enter Europe really naively, too open, and in transition we just look like the likes of Lazio, who aren't a great side, should have been there for us to beat, and we just, again, silly mistakes in transition, boom, goal. You get likes of Pedro, multi-Champions League winning player. So yeah, domestically everything's fine as you would expect. Seems like the team's getting better in terms of racking up points and so there. European-wise, I'm not surprised we get beat by Lazio in the nature we did, but if we could just do what we did against Livingston to these better sides in Europe, I think we could take points and take big scalps.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ross. I'm just sniggering here. Michael Ross is late for once, so he doesn't know that we were actually a couple of minutes late.
Yeah, great minds think alike, Sean. So yeah, I mean, pretty much agree with all of that Sean said there, and I think just going back to like the difference in Celtic from the beginning of the season to now, because I think leading up to the Rangers game, there was a kind of negative type of sentiment setting in. In fact, I think it's maybe not unfair to suggest that had he lost that game, there would have been a lot of pressure. That seems to have entirely subsided and been replaced with a calm and a bit of an expectation domestically. Because as Sean says, in Europe, I mean, that's 2 games we've played in Europe, and I thought we should have got something against Feyenoord, but naivety. I don't think I don't think I was on when we talked about Feyenoord, but I didn't think it was a free kick for the free kick that got the first goal in the first place. And those tiny micro details make the big difference because it spirals from there. Because if it's 0-0 and it builds up, the pressures on Feyenoord, and Feyenoord were already losing possession in defensive areas, and despite those big, lovely, solid green scores at the back, they were in trouble defensively. I felt if the right ball had been on from Hitati in 2 or 3 instances, they would have been in trouble. Maeda had a chance when he was through on the right hand side. Had he made a slightly better decision, so they didn't look as dominant as what I expected. Feyenoord. That being said, they still won the game, so that has to go down to us again, and how we're handling that. Against Feyenoord, against Lazio, I thought vastly improved, much better performance as a team. I fully expected us to beat Lazio, because I don't think Lazio were anything amazing. I think just experience and just bad game management in that match, and I think like there's certain players who just, if I'm really blunt and honest about it, just don't have that quality to get us through those games. I actually don't think Nat Phillips is fit, and I don't think he's anywhere near fit, and I don't think we're going to get him fit. It's just one of those players that when he gets fit is going to be on his tombstone. Not that I'm wishing him an early death. I wish him many happy years in his life. But you look at guys like Yang, and I mean, to be fair, we called this very, very early in the summer. Just not quite ready, and he's not better than what we've got. I pretty much predicted Yang and the other boy Kwon were probably not going to play much this season. Tada, they're not playing much this season, and I don't see much changing there. It looks like Yang is now going to be replaced by Palmer. I think it's difficult to leave Palmer out of a 4-3-3 now, particularly after his last couple of performances. I think I've actually changed my mind a bit on Palmer. He's impressed me the last 2 games. A bit slow, huge amount to do in terms of improvement. And it wouldn't surprise me, like a lot of the rumours are going around that Jota comes in January and displaces him anyway. But yeah, certainly domestically, the game against Kilmarnock was a doddle. Good to see Carter Vickers back. Makes a huge difference, in my opinion, to the shape. I think Scales has been a revelation. Totally shocked me personally because I just didn't see that happening. I think, like most of us, I only own a limited of his cards in Sorare, but I kind of wish I'd have kept the rare that I'd sold ages and ages ago. But I actually think I will go back in for Scales because he's probably looks like the best scorer as a defender on Sorare for Celtic. Yeah. But yeah.
Big man's been on it, hasn't he? I've managed to hold on to mine for a good while, which is good fun. But I think when Carter Vickers comes back in, I think he will form in the best defence with him. I think Navrotke will have a lot to say about it, and I think he'll get his time in the sun to maybe stake a claim for it. But I think big Scales, like, you can't argue with his dual success rate and pass completion. And even when you look at the actual Sorare stats, like the variety of passing, some of them in the final thirds and stuff like that. When you watch him, but it's quite clear, he loves that ball down the channel. He loves lifting one and putting it in into the back line. So, yeah, I think scoring, I don't think his scores change when Carter Vickers comes back that much, because Carter Vickers doesn't play those passes. So we're not going to start asking him to do that. They'll let Scales keep doing it.
I think his scores get better. And the reason I think they get better is because the one area of improvement I would say in Scales' game is the actual, the defensive attributes, the tackling, the heading and all that. And I'm not saying he's not good at them, because he is. I just think that Carter Vickers is so dominant defensively that I just think that Scales has that freedom to just to be the ball playing defender.
Yeah. I think for the first part of the season, like I was in one of these situations where, like we kind of mentioned there loosely with Palma and whatever, I was a wee bit nervous with the business that had been done or not done in the transfer window. We've mentioned Yang and Kwon as well. I was actually like, Yang did disappoint against Lazio, right? But I actually thought that guy showed a lot of potential in that game. Like he was so close to, like if one or two things just, he pushed the envelope, he took the man on, he beat him, or he actually got the ball in the right place. I think he was really close to doing a lot of good, but probably, I think your words were he's not ready. I think that's probably the best way of putting it when it comes to Yang specifically. But I think that's what's kind of shown in this Champions League group stage. We didn't buy anything that made us better. We didn't buy anything that would make a difference in these games, quite clearly. And I know, we lost 2 men in one of the matches. In the second match, it was a wee bit of this and that. But we didn't get anything that won us 2 matches that could have been 6 points in another reality.
I'm not trying to turn this into a conspiracy theory show, right? But some horrendous refereeing decisions in that first game, in my opinion. And it's not like, do you know what? It wasn't like anything brutally obvious. It's these lots of small decisions that like a ball goes out for a throw in. It's a Celtic throw. No, it's not. It's given. But there was lots of them in that final game. The Lazio game, unbelievable that didn't get VAR'd for Hatate's punch. I mean, that is it's just mental. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Aberdeen game the night
very
after.
similar against Aberdeen.
Duke for Aberdeen gets elbowed right in the face. Duke gets a foul against him. So I don't know what it is. Is it a Scottish teams thing? Is it Celtic? I don't know, but horrendous refereeing decisions, and you're up against that when they don't go for you.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I do think, I thought the punch one for sure was something that they should have looked at a bit more. And it's one of those ones where, I don't know if because he wears a mouth guard, it's kind of like he's expecting to get smashed in the face because he's small or something. So I don't know if that maybe some sort of...
If that had any influence on referees' decisions, because he's wearing a mouth guard, so therefore it's fair enough. He could just get hooked in the face.
He's expecting it, He's expecting it. It's just part of the game. He's taking the rough with the smooth. Good on the wee man. Maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know. But I'm the same as you. When you see him taking it, you're like, oh, Jesus, that's like half deliberate. It's not all the way deliberate, but he kind of knows what he's doing, I think,
Let's just call it what it was. That was deliberate.
It's just
I mean, do you know the bit that got me, right? Is, I mean, come on, we've watched football for years and years, played football as well. But that difference at the end, he's clenched his fist. You don't clench your fist when you're not deliberate. If you could get it if you're kind of pulling away. His fist was clenched at the end. He's went to do him. There's no doubt about it.
Fair. Yeah. Red card.
One of the big question marks we had coming into the season was the goalkeeper. I think it's quite safe to say that we've got like the best version of Joe Hart we could possibly ask for this season. After, I think it was like the St Johnstone game, it get earmarked. He made a couple of saves, and it was quite notably one of the better players, despite the result. And it feels like he's really kicked on from there. Despite some of the games that we mentioned in Europe, maybe going against us, he's not really let the head drop as much. He's even saved the penalty this year, and it feels like the gamble of not going into the market to get a goalkeeper is paid off. Certainly so far, hasn't it? Not necessarily paid off, but not backfired on us, let's say.
Do you know? I think the thing is who are we going for is ultimately what comes into question. I mean, you look at Bain came in for that Livingston game and had almost made a howler within about 5 minutes with that one. I don't even know what he was trying to do. Tried to dribble around the striker as he was on the penalty spot. I just feel like the options that were available out with a Hart were obviously not very good. I just feel like he is the best that we've got, and we've just got to stick with him. I think in terms of my criticism personally, he's not made mistakes in the way that he did in the early fixtures that were kind of worrying, and more so, like you said, in some of those fixtures, he's come up with some pretty amazing saves that have actually been game saving or game winning or he keep us in with a draw or whatever. Save. So yeah, from that point of view, like the basics of him actually being useful at shot stopping has came alive. I don't think he's ever going to be, Sean's talked about regularly, like the Ange or the Pep version of, like, a goalie that can proper play out for the back, a sweeper keeper. But for the rest of this season, it certainly bodes a bit better domestically for absolute certain. And he's played reasonably well, I think, in Europe. I think that the goal for the free kick, I think it's harsh to blame Art for that. I know a lot of people did. Some people even blame Kyogo. I don't know. We've got lots of people that are mental. But yeah, he's definitely filling me with more confidence.
Yeah, it's just seems like there's been many moments where a change of goalkeeper seemed quite natural. Maybe after the first season, you thought, okay, is Ange going to go and get the Vicario that he clearly wanted at Spurs, that he got like that, the Mickey van de Ven that he got like that, these types of players that fit his style so well, that at Spurs he got instantly. And after that first year of Ange, you thought, see if we did get a real maverick goalkeeper, this could be really fun just to watch any game at Celtic Park when the goalkeeper is that kind of good. But didn't happen. Second season it didn't happen. This year I thought, okay, definitely going to replace Joe Hart, and they haven't. It's not going to make a huge difference, as Mark's saying. I mean, domestically it's fine, but you just feel like this is every opportunity, every game Celtic have is an opportunity to learn something new and progress. And I don't think having players like Nat Phillips and Joe Hart is doing that. And this has to be about us progressing in Europe ultimately. And we have a great opportunity every domestic game to not only win and win well, but also cultivate and develop a style of football that's going to let us compete in Europe. And I just think the likes of Hart, Phillips, these kinds of players, just don't think we necessarily need them to do what is ultimately just win domestically, which we will do with the players that are, with a younger goalkeeper and possibly just a Wata domestically at centre back would be fine. I don't know why we needed to sign a guy for 4 months. We've seen it in the Champions League. It's not making a big, huge impact. It's just, Anyway, I'm a firm believer in domestically, Celtic are so dominant, so comfortable that we should take some more risks. We should develop players a bit more and not be, so reliant on the likes of Hart and whatever. We should, take some risks and have some fun. But obviously, Celtic Park's not a great place for that at the best of times.
Progressive fun, I think,
Aye, progressive fun. We'll still winning games, of course.
Aye, we don't want Barkas back after that type of fun.
We don't want Onana levels of absolute madness. But I think Celtic do really that relationship of what domestic football should be as well. Yes, it's about winning. Yes, it's about beating your rival. Yeah, it's about that. Great. We've got that nailed. We have conquered that. We've had 13 years of that. But we need to find a way to compete in Europe and make sure Celtic's name is in that kind of top table in Europe again. I think we can do it. I think the resources are there, the fans are there. Just need some a different outlook, I think.
Yeah. I think we all agree in that sentiment, and that's why I think we found the window overall frustrating, because there was a lot of goalkeepers actually on the market and they've all moved. Yeah. They've just got somewhere, got a new deal. They're not going to be moving next summer, right? So the market for goalkeepers is a bit more like, you've got to deal with who's available when you're shopping kind of thing. And we did miss out on a lot of guys. It could have been, like you said, Sean, with the team we had last year, you just had to add something else in the goals, and it would have just moved us up. Obviously, we've lost Starfelt, Jota's moved on, some other bits and bobs, whatever. The squad's in a slightly different position. But I do feel that it was a gamble for them to back themselves to get the best out of Joe Hart for one more year. And yeah, I think it's maybe not this. I don't think you could necessarily say it's paid off yet, but I don't think it's backfired like we were maybe worried about. But I do think the underlying part of this is we have missed out on guys. They're gone. We're not going to sign guys like there's no point naming them. We're not going to sign them. They're signed for somebody else, and we've got to find new targets. And I guess that's another part of the window where a lot of the players that came in were new names to all of us. And we watch a lot of football in a lot of different funny places. And, we're signing in guys like Lager Bielke, Navroche, Palma, to name the ones that spring to mind, of course. And again, that was another part of this where coming out the window, it's obvious we've not really out and out made the squad better. But there was that concern of, are these guys actually going to be, like, are we shopping at the right part of the food chain here to bring these guys in? And just before I give it over to you, I think Navroche made good first impressions. I think Lager Bielke has come back from a bad first impression. And I think Palma, I've not really got a first impression of yet, really, to be honest. But yeah.
I think that Navroche or ASAP Rocky or WhatsApp Ricky, I think he ultimately is going to struggle to get back into that team as a starter. I don't see where he fits now. I think Celtic haven't had a ball playing defender as competent as Scales in a while, in my opinion. And I'm just basing that entirely on the last bunch of games that I've seen, because we didn't see that before. I remember Scales played when he first came, and it was almost like a kind of wing back. Because some people have said, "Oh, get Scales to play left wing back." I don't think him at left wing back. I actually think fans would be back on his case again, saying he's terrible. Get him out to Stirling Albion's B team. I just think that him in that central position, playing in that system, is just working. I can't see anything fundamentally that's going to change there. He's now, I believe, in the Ireland national team, where I believe he's going to start. His stock seems to be on the rise. I don't see where Rocky gets in there. Lager Bielka, I don't mean to be harsh, but I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I think, to be fair to Sean, predicted it right at the beginning. Said, I think Sean had looked at his data, and all the data kind of was just aimed at shrug of the shoulders, like, why have we signed him? I've not seen anything since to suggest otherwise, that he's going to prove anything wrong. I'm not too excited about those guys. Palma, he's only had like bits and bobs of games. I think the one thing that's underwhelming about him is he's not the fastest, which kind of takes me back to those guys that we hounded out last year, and quite rightly so, your Haksabanovic. And I believe there's an element of that in him. I think, and this is just my personal view based on a tiny sample size so far, I think he's a better player than Haksabanovic. He looks far more in control of of possession, and he looks more of a maverick player, but with more natural talent. Just my view based on what I've seen so far. But I think he's a long way off a Jota. And I think if the rumours be true and Jota does become available and doesn't go to Spurs with Ange and comes back to Celtic, then I think he's going to be on the bench.
I think it was Naroki that I was saying was kind of average. I actually think Lager Bielka's got some attributes that, if we tuned them up, if we turned them up, could be fantastic. But
it was aerial duels you said he was good for, Lager Bielke,
duels, and I forget, man. I forget.
Yeah.
I think his passing was pretty outstanding. I can't remember, it's so long ago. Naroki was the one that was a bit more average, just a bit more like, I don't really see this. But do you know what? Like, as Mark was saying, I actually forget what Mark was saying, because there's people doing crazy stuff out in the street.
Talk about Palma.
Palma, yeah, I kind of was quite kind of dismissive of Palma. I think I was just more dismissive of Celtic's entire recruitment approach. He scored a good goal against Lazio. It was obviously offside by a centimetre. He looks like he's going to be a player that can definitely make an impact when we need him to make an impact. In fairness to Haksabanovic, he used to be able to do that as well when we were playing horrible low blocks with 4,000 people in the box. He actually, his ability to break that down and play really neat little 1-2s and create space out of nothing was Haksabanovic's strong point. When we're trying to, press and trying to, make sure that we're really compact and tight and not going to concede daft goals, Haksabanovic not so good. So there's just players have strengths, and it's all about aligning those strengths as best as we can and optimizing all those strengths and try to mitigate the kind of weaknesses. And every player, as I always say, Quinny, every single professional footballer is a good footballer. These players can just be put in really bad situations and asked to do things that they simply can't do. So yeah, wasn't crazy about the recruitment, but we should be good enough to keep dominating domestically. And yeah.
I think as well, if we total up the transfer fees for a few of these guys as well, when we do think about like leveling the squad up, not too sure that's clearly happened with some of these guys. And we're getting a wee bit of a chat in the comments as well about judging if some of these guys haven't played too much, and I totally get that, of course. But it is first impressions, I think, is mainly what we're talking about here for the most part. Guys will develop. Some of them might let us down a wee bit more. I think with Palma, the thing with him, as you say, Mark, it's very clear he's not got pace going for him. I was really surprised to see at the weekend, it's like how quick he actually could be at running when there was actually like a spell in the first 5 minutes, and I actually caught myself saying out loud
how quick he could be at running.
Mate, it doesn't look, but I don't know what it is, but see, when the first couple of times I've watched him, it just looks like he doesn't want to run. He's frightened, and then if he does, like, he's not really, it's obvious he's not rapid, as far as football players go. And then in that game, must have been in the first 10 minutes, but I caught myself audibly saying, "Oh, he's running." And he was like, he was running down the left wing with somebody, and it really caught my eye. And I was like, "Oh, brilliant. That's fantastic."
Also, to be fair to the guy, he is playing in the same team as Sonic the Hedgehog, Dyson Maeda. So anything compared to him looks like, the slowest player in the planet. Lagerbielke's also got kind of mobility issues as well, just looks at that Champions League level chronically slow. But you can cover up for it. Not everybody has to be, not everyone has to be an absolute elite athlete that can move about the pitch. It's just so easily. Like you can cover up for guys' weaknesses. So and if Palma can just be utilised in the right way, can be a really good player for Celtic. But decision making of Palma is something that we've seen wasn't too great when we looked at his kind of performances in Greece. But like the decision making of the whole team as well, if we could just make slight changes and just try to, I don't know how you would go about that. I suppose that's Rodgers, kind of what Rodgers has to do. Some of the decisions, like that moment in the Lazio game where Maeda burst through, got onto that loose ball. You think, right, he's the only player on the planet that could have got to that ball as quickly as he did. All he had to do was just a Cruyff turn around, Kyogo's running. It's those moments, and just those little moments, if they could just be coached into making better decisions, then it would be the positives would just be compounding, so much, because we've got so many players that are so good at certain things.
I think the thing is that probably one of the most frustrating things about Celtic as an attacking force is, like you mentioned in that Livingston game, is Maeda and Kyogo linking up. There was the incident against Kilmarnock near the end of the game where Maeda's basically broken free in the middle of the pitch, and he's got Kyogo with an absolute acres of space, and all he needs to do is run it into the defender that's coming tight to him, slips it to Kyogo for basically an easy goal. But he doesn't. He does a really bizarre shot from outside the box, and I'm Maeda's biggest fan. It's not really about criticising him directly, but it's more like it's
What are you
like
doing?
no, it's actually more like the partnership of him and Kyogo. And I think like if you want to have Maeda playing through the middle in that type of role and actually giving them autonomy to create a partnership, but then I think they would build that. Because they're both freakishly talented players, and I don't think at times our fan base really appreciate just how good Maeda is. Everyone obviously gets to see how good Kyogo was because he puts the ball in the net ruthlessly, regularly. But yeah, I just feel like the two of them as a force could be so powerful for us.
Absolutely.
That's probably one of the options that Palma might give us. It kind of last thing I've kind of got on him in terms of just an opinion or whatever is with how much work we had to, I think in the Feyenoord game, not the Feyenoord game, basically every game he's played for the most part, if we give him the ball in the wrong position of the pitch, he doesn't want it, he'll give it his back and we have to cycle it all the way around the other end of the pitch, let him walk his way up before we can go and find him. And then he does have a really good delivery, he does have a really good shot, and he's almost like that kind of meme from when you were a wee guy of like Juninho Pernambucano in like computer games, or even the meme that people think of as like David Beckham, like they're just good for doing this one element of the game kind of thing.
Adriano.
And yeah, that kind of thing. They've just got one thing going for him. Just get him into the final third, because people were saying in the comments as well, play him to feet, and yeah, okay, that's fine. But if you can't use a guy in possession actively to beat a man, to transition up the way, to do, to interplay in that sense, then that I don't want to say handicap, but they do slow you down, and you just need to watch Palma's minutes. You'll see what I'm talking about to one extent or another. I talked over you. I was saying to go, Sean. Sorry, you were going to say something.
I can't remember. It wasn't important anyway.
I was going to say the other one I've got on my notes here. We've kind of been talking. We've been kind of all over the pitch in a good way. But again, just to keep it on transfer, just for the next kind of little bit, one of this, along with goalkeeper, another area, obviously besides replacing Jota, but another area we all spoke about, the Celtic fans across the world frequently, was we need a left back in the summer transfer window. We need a left back.
I like that.
I'm a huge Greg Taylor fan under Ange, and I just thought, hey, when Brendan comes in, there's not going to be any more Ange ball left back fun for Taylor. He's going to go back to normal left back life. And under Rodgers, that might not work out too well. But I think real credit to Taylor. Again, like we've seen from him under Ange, he just gets his hands dirty, keeps his head down, keeps going. And it feels like over the last 3 weeks, I think we're getting the best version of Taylor again in this Brendan Rodgers Celtic. Taylor or anyone, feel free to talk about midfield. We can move into midfield from this, I suppose. But it's good to see that the manager is still. But it's good to see we have a manager that's capable of still trying of enhancing the guys that were in the squad already. Scales is a great example, of course, but even somebody like Taylor, who was quite bespoke to the team last year, he's still going good.
I think the thing with Taylor is like, I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not excited about him this season. The European games particularly just feel like he's been out his depth. Domestically, yeah, I mean he's done well. Like you can see, he's playing a big role, particularly down that left hand side, attacking wise. There's been a lot of chance creation coming from him. I think we need to understand that his weaknesses are being exposed when we come up against better quality teams. So if we want to progress, then ultimately he's still nothing's changed really, and I don't think that Taylor has went up a level. And I think that part's going to, it's going to require, in my opinion, a huge jump for Taylor to get there, or we do ultimately replace him, or he just becomes that guy that's just the go-to guy. Well, we get someone else, because I don't think as a team in Europe we're going to progress much with Greg Taylor.
I agree that guys like that have like Scales, for example. Like Scales got a lot of plaudits for the Lazio game, and I think he did very good at Lazio. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I said in the podcast on the channel, I think he got a little bit too much credit, for the Lazio game. I think there was some instances where he maybe was a bit sloppy in possession or scalped it out when he maybe could have kept it on one occasion or two, or whatever. Very pedantic things, but those little details are what shows maybe the level, the ceiling that we've got in the team or with some players. But I think Taylor against Lazio, I think he did really good, to be honest with you. I know overall we didn't do well, but I was worried about Taylor in Champions League. And I do think he's really kicked on in the last month. I think we're getting probably, because the thing with Taylor last year is like, it was the inverted fullback role. He's still doing bits of that, but he's fitting it into a bit more of a traditional kind of shape. And I think he's improved his game. Maybe we'll see a wee bit more on that one. One of the big notes we did have from the summer coming into the stream tonight, but was midfield chat. Now, the best midfield, I don't think was ever really in question on this show in terms of the best three that we could be hopefully seeing if all fit and available. But we had what I put down in the notes is the false dawn for some of David Turnbull. So we've seen that kind of happen and not happen.
I mean, I don't want to gloat on it because I don't think it's a good thing to gloat on other people's demise. However, it was highly predicted. A lot of people, particularly after that first game where David Turnbull put in a world-class performance, getting a penalty and a goal in that first game, and everyone excited and some people saying that he should start ahead of Hatate. I wish we could get some of those people in the comments that were saying that mental stuff, so that we can get their heads checked for them, because what an absolute mental thing that was to say in hindsight. Hatate at that point being questioned. And by the way, I had people even saying to me this week that what's happened to Hatate? Literally hours before the game at the weekend, what has happened to Hatate? To which I replied, I have no idea what you mean. Nothing's happened. He's still our best player. He's still freakishly talented. He's still going to affect games. And more than that, he's been injured. And the comment I heard and I've seen, and not just one location, was Brendan just doesn't seem to have been able to get anything out of Hatate the way that Ange did.
Yeah,
again,
give up, and that's it. Give up.
Again, he's played, and he's been injured and hardly played those games. I think fans need to calm down at times and understand, like, the sample size of things that have happened are so small. Hatate is by the way, Hatate showed you in that last game, and any time anyone makes any negative comment, please replay that game from that week there for how good Hatate is. But crazily talented player, easily, in my opinion, one of the best midfielders in Britain at the moment, and certainly could easily play at a much a higher level in terms of league and standard, and should be playing in a stable, consistent Celtic team, hopefully going forward, where we are better in Europe. But yeah, I mean, bottom line is that Turnbull, absolute dud. By the way, I just want to say, I don't know if you remember this, Quinny, but someone else was saying when I said that about Lewis Ferguson, and they scoffed and laughed about the idea of Lewis Ferguson being better than Turnbull. I mean, the absurdity to even suggest that was not the case. Lewis Ferguson, incidentally, now is the captain of Bologna, and because I said that he was, being looked at for Milan and Juventus, which was, I've got various sources that have fact checked that, which is absolutely the case. He signed a new deal with Bologna. Now the captain, easily on the radar of massive clubs in Europe, and don't be shocked when he goes for a huge fee in the summer to one of those clubs. Whereas Turnbull will be on his way to English Championship team, or I don't know where he's going to go, but he ain't playing for Celtic after the end of this season. Or if he is, he's just consigned himself to basically a contract on the bench at Celtic.
Don't you think though that it just goes in cycles, like with the kind of mass consensus among fans of any football club? It just seems to be a predictable cycle. Guy plays well 3 or 4 games, everyone's excited, then he has a couple of poor games, and then it's he just doesn't, he's not interested, or he's not turned up, or he's not this, or he's not that, and then he comes back and he plays excellently. And there's always these reasons given for why the player plays poorly, and perhaps maybe it's just because football's actually difficult and you're playing against 11 men that are trying to stop you from playing well. So you can't always play at that top level. And when you get the freaks of the world, the Mbappes, the guys who really very rarely have a poor game because they're just that good. I think sometimes footballers just need to be given a wee bit more leeway when it comes to that kind of stuff, because it is difficult. People are trying to stop you. I went to see a Falkirk game with my friend Johnny, and honestly, I was watching the shooting drill, and these guys look like absolute superstars in that shooting drill, top corner. Just everything was going on, absolutely ridiculous, Pro Evolution Soccer type shots. As soon as they play a game, you're up against resistance. People are trying to stop you. Falkirk looked again like Falkirk. So I just think it goes in cycles. And sometimes legitimately there are poor performances. But like Mark says, you need a bigger sample size for that to really judge it. It has to be a long-term trend that you can see. But over 5, 6, 7 games at the start of the season, it's hard to really judge anyone. And I love that Rodgers came out and was open and transparent about that relationship that he had with, and that conversation he had with Hatate, because then we can see, he applied that, and we can see it on the pitch, which is exciting. And as I've mentioned before, Quinny, I think there's a few dissenting people in the comments that didn't like this idea. I think Celtic should be more open and more transparent about that kind of stuff, because we as fans like to hear it, and then we could understand a bit more, what we're seeing, and we can get on the player's side. Sometimes you just kind of fling the player under the bus, and the player is just playing in a really difficult game that none of us play professionally, because it's so difficult to even think about playing professionally.
Yeah, for sure. This is Hatate's impact in the league and Champions League so far this season. So, as you might remember, he got dropped in pre-season after the Athletic Bilbao game. So he came off the bench against Ross County, famously came off the bench against Aberdeen and was impressive, but subsequently became injured. And then we didn't see him again until the Dundee game, where he came on for 30 minutes. And then since then, he's been coming back to full fitness into the team. So, yeah, small sample size, to be kind. He's not really had the opportunity to have much of an impact on the season until maybe the last 3 or 4 games there.
Yeah. Even if you go, Quinny, to the SO5 scores over the last, just go to all-time scores, right? You see that he's quite consistently inconsistent. And I think it's the nature of the positions that he's playing and the things that he's supposed to do. It is quite boom or bust with Hatate at times, particularly in the Sorare world, where you're trying to, I always feel a little bit like this is a risk here. I'm either getting a super high score from Hatate, or he's just going to put in a 30. So some players are just like that, and it's just impossible for them to play. To Joey Veerman basically is 100 a game. It's just rare that a player has that, and is facilitated by the team allowing him to get that volume of key passes and shots on target and all that. So yeah, more.
I think Liam Scales will be our Joey Veerman. Things are going.
I mean, Jota pretty much was. I think probably the closest Celtic have got to Joey Veerman at the moment, scores wise, is Matt O'Reilly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, as Sean touched on, the Celtic from a Sorare standpoint is far more exciting. In fact, that game week there would have been far better had we not conceded that stupid goal, which was a foul, by the way. There was 2 fouls. But
Matt O'Reilly.
I mean, there's some crazy scores, aren't they? I mean,
yeah,
it's just,
that's what you want in Sorare. You want a guy who takes all the corners, all the free kicks, that little 5%, expect 4% of 4% of corners end in a goal. See, if you're just doing that over a season, you're constantly hitting corners. It's a massive, massive boost to that card. If you're playing it 50 times a season and that player's hitting every corner, it's a massive boost in the long run in terms of points and so there.
Huge improvement from him, and I think as well, like, I mean, my only, I mean, if criticism, it's not because obviously he's going to develop and he's going to get better and better and better, and because he's young, so it's it's a good thing, is is obviously just to improving his athleticism, his actual conditioning. See if he improved in his conditioning, I mean, he could go to a crazy level. I mean, a real crazy level.
It's funny you've said that because Rodgers was quoted as saying he was on the phone to the Denmark manager and he had to tell him, like, Rodgers' words were something like, it's totally different working with Matt in person to what you see from the outside. Rodgers said words very similarly to that. And then what you said there as well, Mark, he must have this, he definitely must have something that people, coaches think he has, but he doesn't have, because he's quality, Matt. He's really hard to find fault with. And I know you mean about athleticism, but I think he's a bit leaner this year. I don't think he's ever going to be quick, and he's pretty much as strong as you need him to be, so maybe it's conditioning, but he's playing a lot of 90 minutes as well. I'm not really too sure what more you could ask from the big man, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think he's doing great. Obviously, it's stepping up a level is what you could ask for him, but I mean, if you're the Denmark boss not calling him up, I don't know what more you could ask for him, kind of thing. But
yeah.
I think big man's been on it.
I just mean as an elite athlete, like,
fair,
because I think technically, I actually don't think he just seems a bit slower, right? And he's slower because the power and the pace is not at that elite athlete level, and it's maybe frustration. Maybe he'll never do that, but I'm just saying, if he'd done that, we're talking Celtic. I've got a guy that's not a 20, 30 million pound player. There's a 60, 70, 80 million pound player in there. If he does that, and he could get to that level, but at his current level, he is easily a massive player that could easily be Celtic's best player in the next year or two, easy.
Yeah, plus the Denmark thing, I can't, obviously there's a lot of confusion as to why he's not called up, but we're not right in saying Denmark can play 3-4-3s and stuff like that, and there's probably not at this moment in time an actual natural position for him to play. Plus they've still got Eriksson, they've still got guys like that they're still loyal to Kasper Schmeichel in goals, which tells you all you need to know when they've got Ronau at Union Berlin. So it's maybe the next cycle for Denmark he'll be a part of. So people, I remember Callum McGregor. What age was he before he started getting in the Scotland team? 24, something ridiculous. Same with John McGinn. Well, maybe that's just how Denmark do it, but he'll be in the next cycle for sure. Once those older guys that are there kind of decide to hang up.
Yeah, I think Denmark. I think you're right. They're kind of clinging on to that generation, that who've got them to that point. The Kiers, the Erikssons, Højbjergs, and Brathwaite's, and the other guy with the
Delaney.
Delaney.
Yeah, exactly. Delaney, and the guy that used to play for, what do you call them? Red Bull.
Poulsen.
Poulsen. So those guys are like kind of on the way out now. They're being replaced by other really quality players as well. So I would expect he would be in that next batch.
Yeah, because they've got Darami, they've got all these younger guys that are actually getting a game now. So hopefully O'Reilly's the next. I think that boosts his value as well. Hopefully Celtic can get an absolute fortune for him, when we do decide to sell.
Yeah.
And we can get 10 more Hakatis.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of all these contracts. As much as we're all excited about, they're on a new 4-year deal or a new 5-year deal, depending on what it is. I think a lot of these guys have got nice, new, fresh transfer clauses all over the place. What if a Premier League club comes in for me? What if What about 2 years into my contract? What's the minimum fee? What about in the last year? What's the minimum? it's going to be laced up with all that stuff now to be very, because that's the way European football is. When players get new contracts, is it just gets agented up so that if they want to do a transaction, they know what the fee is and they can just agent it, make it happen. So
remember on Football Manager years ago, Quinny, basically bankrupted the team overnight. I signed a guy, signed a superstar, thought, right, this is the time for this club to evolve and go to the next level. I signed a guy and I put him on like 50 grand a week, broke the wage structure, and it bumped everyone else up to 50 grand a week because I'd put all the clauses in everyone's contracts to keep them all sweet that, you know, if another player gets a certain amount of money, you all get, and a wee financial thing was just like overnight, absolutely, you know, about 5 million in debt overnight. It was hilarious. I had to go back and play another one of the saves to avoid that. So yeah, it's important that we take advantage of these guys when they're at their absolute peak, but it's hard to know what the peak is at times. At Celtic, when domestically we're just not challenged as much. But yeah, it's good. We've got some good players, Quinny, and from a Sorare perspective, which is what this show should be about, from a Sorare perspective, you know, Celtic continue to be a very, 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 very powerful team on that SO5. And if you can pair up O'Reilly with Hatate and maybe Kyogo, you're in with a shout. You're up there with some of the best teams on that platform already. So, but I think O'Reilly's probably a couple of £100 now, surely.
Oh yeah, O'Reilly's popped. He's had a good start to the season for sure. And there's some rumours that we're going to get some Celtic 3D cards. So the new cards for the 23-24 season. Celtic put a tweet out earlier today, I think, maybe the first thing this morning, like wishing the guys on international duty, and they tagged Sorare in the tweet, and then my messages are going off. We might get cards. I think we could. This international break surely the window.
To those games, Quinny. That's what I'm more concerned about. Getting back to those sweet hospitality games.
That is definitely a priority. The other thing I would say is that do you know what I would have liked to have seen? Because I'm not a fan of these new cards. I'm going to just stick it out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to get them, right? That's not the point, right? I'm still going to be a victim to Sorare's schemes. But I would have liked to have seen Celtic in those last season cards that get done for like the English Premier League and stuff like that. I'd have loved to have seen Celtic in those cards because they just looked cool. I think those, in my opinion, those are the best cards that Sorare have done. That batch of like, because they've done the same for the J League and the K League and all that. They just look cool. I'd have loved to have seen them for Celtic, but we're going to get 3D cards that you're enthusiastic about, but I'm absolutely
I like
not.
them. They're well cool.
They fixed them with that stupid font when they put the stupid font for the thing down the bottom. They fixed it and they made the fonts all the same. It looks all right. It looks good now. And I'm excited to see that kit with the black kind of Adidas. That'll be cool. And yeah, we will all spend real money on these JPEGs that exist online in the wild west of Web3 because we are sad and we have no lives out with little pictures of footballers, Quinny.
I've got some rewards, guys. Do you want to see them before we go?
No, you're just winning.
No, actually, I don't. No, I don't because
that's not much.
I think fixated on my.
Oh, I'm getting a.
What's this?
Sean's away. You did that when we're. Oh, I'm losing. I'm going through a tunnel.
Yeah, that's a lot of. Yeah, I didn't win the super rare threshold this week because, well, just poor performances ultimately. But I think I had David Marshall in goals in that game turned into a bit of a mess.
David Marshall on my 240, and he helped me win this wee rare card, an Austrian forward from Altac.
Oh, I knew here. Used to be
you know him?
Sheffield, of course. He used to be Sheffield Wednesday legend. Is he not like? I think he's played. He plays for that team Altac. They're decent. He's a striker. He's like a big target man now, like a proper lumpy boy. But he's
He'd do a job for Livingston, wouldn't he?
By the way, go back. I don't know if it's got. Listen, he scored like something like 100 goals or something like that for Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he used to. I don't know if that's clearly not covering that far back, but
No.
he I mean, he's what, 34 now? 30, around about that. Yeah. Yeah, so he's not his career's not on an upward trajectory at this moment, but this card that you're about to open might well be.
Yeah, so this is a tier 3. I finished 20. This is a Celtic team. So this was, I had my German goalkeeper, but I had Scales, I had Tatate, Captain Scales, McGregor Unique, and then Furuhashi was in this team. Obviously didn't score a goal or anything, so he kind of let me down. We finished in 24th. It could have been a wee bit better. But a tier 3, and it's a super rare, so there's only 10 of these guys, for anyone that doesn't know what's going on, really. And a tier 3 is like, should be a player, should be good. He's Danish. He plays in
Matt O'Reilly.
defence for Toulouse. Rasmus Nikolaisen. Nice. Oh, number 2, but I get the number 3 card. Close, but no
Is that not
cigar.
the boy that used to play for Red Bull?
Oh, that'd be nice. Nikolaisen. Now, Toulouse, as we know, they scout well. You know, they know their onions. So if they've got Nikolaisen in, let's hope he's pretty good. Let's have a wee peek. So the super rare last sold for 0.3, what did we say? Put it in the middle between, let's call it 300 quid. And his scores, yeah, he works. He works, eh? That's not a bad super rare at all.
Yeah, it's good. Well done. Well done.
Tier 3.
To your
Not
big
great.
empire. What do you mean not great? It's all right for free.
Yeah, it's all right to win. It's all right to win.
You've just got a big lump of money there and some free cards. Because that's you get your 3D that you like. Your trophy cabinet.
I've got the new layout on Pilot. You're only meant to see that.
Unlike the Rangers trophy cabinet. But yeah, good. Was that all right? Okay, fine. Looks all right. I'll take that. Yeah.
That's pretty slick. That's all right. Still some wee cracks and some bugs, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, looks decent. Nice.
I've had a great time. It's been great seeing you again as well, Mark. I look forward to catching you next week because we're on this international break. So next week when we get back together, we'll definitely be thinking about is Carter Vickers coming back into the team. Will we have some 3D cards by then? I'm sure there'll be some more stuff to get stuck into. If anyone's joined this, the whole thing, watched it live, fist bump, drop a like. Make sure to support the channel. It's been an absolute pleasure. Mark, again, hail, hail.
Pleasure, boys. Hail, hail.